The set of the Graham Norton show glowed with its usual charm, deep red chairs, glittering curtains, and a crowd eager for another round of unpredictable celebrity moments. But tonight wasn't just any night. On the iconic couch sat two Hollywood titans, Ryan Reynolds, oozing charm and wit, and Denzel Washington, regal in posture, every bit the legend his career demanded. Graham Norton leaned forward with his signature grin, sensing something electric in the air. And then he asked it, the question that turned the atmosphere from playful to combustible. "So Ryan," he began, his voice dripping with mischief, "what's it really like working around someone with the aura of Mr. Washington?" The audience chuckled, leaning in. Ryan adjusted in his seat, half laughing, but his expression shifted to something deliberately provocative. "I mean, look," Ryan started, hands raised like a man delivering a confession, "Denzel is a legend. That's non-negotiable. But let's be honest, he's also kind of a diva." A collective gasp rippled through the studio, followed by stunned laughter. Graham's mouth fell open in mock shock. The cameras panned to Denzel, who didn't flinch. He remained still, slowly lowering his glass of water, locking eyes with Ryan like a lion measuring his prey. The audience held their breath. "A diva?" Denzel repeated, his voice low, calm, but with an unmistakable edge. Ryan grinned, unbothered. "All I'm saying is, on set, we had more lighting adjustments for Denzel's close-ups than actual takes for our scenes." The crowd exploded in laughter. But Denzel wasn't laughing. Not yet. The audience's laughter hadn't yet settled when Denzel leaned forward slightly. The expression on his face didn't shift much, no overt anger, no mock offense, just a slow, calculated narrowing of the eyes. It was the kind of look that had silenced entire movie sets. And tonight, it brought a chill to the brightly lit studio. "Ryan," Denzel began, his tone even, voice deliberate, "I don't need lighting to shine." That line hit like a lightning bolt. The crowd let out an audible "oh-ich-ich-ich," and Graham visibly recoiled in delight, clapping his hands like a kid watching two uncles square off at Thanksgiving. Ryan, caught off guard, chuckled but raised an eyebrow. "Fair enough," he replied with a half-smile. "But you've got to admit, there's a bit of theater in the way you walk onto set." Denzel nodded slowly, then turned fully toward Ryan. "You know what that is?" he asked. "It's called presence. Something they don't teach in green screen boot camp." The tension escalated, but the audience was loving every second. This wasn't a feud. It was a masterclass in shade, two pros delivering blows without ever raising their voices. Ryan sat back, clearly enjoying the banter, but not ready to concede. "I guess that explains why you need a 5-person entourage just to check your wardrobe." Denzel cracked the faintest smile. "That's funny," he said, coming from a guy whose biggest co-star is a CGI raccoon. The crowd lost it. Even Graham had to put his cue cards down, wiping a tear from his eye. The studio lights bounced off Ryan's grinning face as he threw up his hands in defeat. All right, he laughed. "He's not just a legend, he's lethal." Denzel didn't say another word. He just sat back, arms folded, the king returning to his throne. The message had been sent, and received. And in that moment, everyone watching knew, Ryan brought jokes, but Denzel brought weight. As the energy in the studio hit a fever pitch, Graham Norton leaned in with a smirk. "Well, that escalated quickly," he said, flipping through his cards. "I was promised friendly banter, not an acting masterclass with live ammunition." Ryan raised his glass, still smiling. "Hey, I came here to have fun, not get roasted by the Academy." Denzel didn't flinch. "I don't roast, Ryan. I reveal." That line shifted the atmosphere again. Laughter faded, and for a beat, the room was still. Graham blinked, Ryan's jaw tightened, but only slightly. Denzel's voice hadn't risen, his tone hadn't sharpened. Yet the words landed like a stone tossed in still water, rippling, undeniable. "Look," Ryan started, "I get it. You're a serious guy. You dig deep, you carry weight. But sometimes, man, you've got to lighten up. Not everything's training day." Denzel's reply was immediate, and not everything's Deadpool. The crowd's gasp was involuntary, like someone had opened a trapdoor beneath the comedy and let realness fall through. Even Graham went silent. The tension wasn't hostile, it was sharp, electric, the kind that makes a moment unforgettable. Ryan nodded slowly, respect flickering behind his eyes. "Fair," he said. "But for the record, I cry in serious films too." Denzel cracked a smile. "And I laugh, in private." The balance returned. The audience roared again, but the tone had changed. This wasn't just celebrity banter. It was a dance of reputations, personas, legacies. Ryan was the smooth-talking jester, quick with wit, but Denzel was the oak, rooted, immovable. Graham seized the moment. "Gentlemen," he said, "I feel like I'm watching a Marvel crossover where Shakespeare shows up uninvited." That broke the tension. Ryan laughed, Denzel grinned, and the studio finally exhaled. But even as the jokes flowed again, no one forgot what had just happened. Ryan had stepped into the fire. And Denzel didn't burn him, he branded the moment. Graham leaned back in his chair, clearly delighted. "All right," he chuckled, "now that we've all survived that intellectual thunderstorm, let's shift gears. Ryan, I heard you've got a new project. Something animated?" Ryan adjusted his blazer, flashing a trademark grin. "Yeah, it's called Meta Zoo Patrol. I voice a hyper-intelligent raccoon who solves crimes while managing a toxic relationship with a hologram. It's ridiculous. And honestly, I think it might win an Oscar." The audience laughed, but Denzel arched an eyebrow. "A raccoon?" he asked, voice low and deliberate. Ryan shrugged. "Don't knock it. Some of the best acting happens behind CGI these days." Denzel didn't smile. "Acting is more than delivering lines through a voice filter. It's presence. Weight. Purpose." That silenced the room again. Ryan's smile faltered, but he kept his cool. "So you're saying voice actors aren't real actors?" "I'm saying some roles are crafted to entertain," Denzel replied. "Others are built to endure." Graham tried to jump in. "Well, this just got existential." But he was ignored. The tension was back. This wasn't Hollywood banter anymore, it was a clash of values. Ryan, feeling the pressure, leaned forward. "With all due respect, Denzel, you sound like acting stopped evolving after the 90s. Times change. Audiences change. Art changes. And truth doesn't," Denzel shot back, eyes locked. "You can dress it up, animate it, or put it behind a superhero mask. But if you forget what you're standing for, you're just noise." There was no laughter this time, just applause. A few audience members even stood up. Graham looked stunned. Ryan forced a laugh, but his expression was tight. All right, let's not make this inside the actor's studio. I'm still recovering from the raccoon dig." Denzel finally let a smile form. "Just making sure you know raccoons don't give standing ovations." Graham clapped his hands, breaking the tension like a schoolteacher calling for recess. "Well, I think this might be the most uncomfortable fun we've ever had." But the truth was clear to everyone in the studio. Ryan Reynolds had walked in expecting clever barbs. What he got was Denzel Washington delivering a masterclass in authenticity, and making sure no one mistook charm for depth again. Ryan straightened in his seat, the levity draining from his expression. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially not like this, not publicly, not by someone with Denzel's gravity. For a moment, he glanced at the audience, as if trying to gauge whether they were still on his side. Some were smiling, but many were silent. "You know," Ryan said slowly, "I came on this show to have a good time, promote a weird little movie, maybe get teased a bit. I didn't think I'd be defending my entire generation's approach to acting." Denzel leaned forward, calm but unrelenting. "Then maybe that's the problem, Ryan. You thought this was about promotion. I thought it was about purpose." Graham shifted in his chair, clearly torn between breaking the tension and letting it burn. Ryan took a breath. "Look, man, I respect you. Seriously. You're a titan. But I grew up watching movies that changed tone, that played with form." Deadpool isn't just a superhero, it's a commentary. You think that doesn't matter? It matters, Denzel said, voice heavy. But commentary without conviction is just sarcasm dressed as wisdom. The studio gasped. It was brutal, surgical. Not shouted, not angry. Just, true. Ryan blinked. For once, there was no comeback. No slick remark. No meme-worthy grin. Just a man realizing he'd been outmaneuvered in a space he thought he owned. Graham finally spoke. Okay. I think we're gonna take a quick break. No, Ryan interrupted. He looked at Denzel, not with anger, but with something closer to realization. You think I'm shallow? Denzel shook his head. No, I think you're smart enough to know better, and funny enough to hide behind it. Silence again. Even the crew had stopped moving. It wasn't a late-night talk show anymore. It was something closer to theater. And just as the lights dimmed for commercial, the camera caught Ryan leaning back, rubbing his face and whispering under his breath. Damn, he really is the legend. Fade to black. The break was over, but the energy in the room had shifted. What was once light-hearted had turned into something raw, almost sacred. The producers knew they had gold, but they also knew they were treading a razor-thin line between viral and volatile. The moment the cameras turned back on, Denzel was sitting calmly, eyes locked ahead. Ryan, still seated, but visibly less armored. Gone was the smugness. What remained was curiosity wrapped in discomfort. Graham opened with a half-hearted chuckle. Well, that escalated beautifully. The audience laughed nervously. Ryan didn't. Instead, he turned to Denzel and said, "You want me to be more than clever? Fine. Let's talk." Twitter was already on fire. Clips were circulating mid-air, #DenzelUnfiltered was trending, and headlines like Reynolds vs. Washington, ego meets legacy, were everywhere. I grew up with actors who were untouchable, Ryan said into the camera. Denzel, Pacino, Streep, they were giants. But that distance? It was terrifying. So yeah, I became the guy who makes people laugh, even when I'm scared. Especially when I'm scared. Denzel nodded. And what are you scared of now? A beat. Being hollow, Ryan said. The audience fell silent. Denzel didn't smirk. He didn't gloat. He just leaned back and said, "That's the first honest thing you've said all night." The crowd didn't erupt. They exhaled, collectively. Like a truth had finally landed in the middle of a room full of performance. And then, from the back row, a woman's voice rang out. "This is why we need actors like you both. You don't fake real." Everyone turned. The audience member stood up. "We're tired of fake tears, tired of viral moments. Give us truth. You owe us that." Ryan blinked. "We owe you?" She nodded. "Every ticket we buy, every hour we spend watching you. That's a transaction. And the price is authenticity." Suddenly, the stage wasn't just a stage. It was a courtroom. It was a confessional, and neither man had a script anymore. Graham sat back, whispering off mic, "This just became the most important episode I've ever hosted." The studio was frozen. Denzel turned to the woman in the audience who had just stood up, a film student, maybe mid-20s, eyes on fire. "You want authenticity?" he asked, his voice low but sharp. "You think it's owed to you?" She didn't flinch. "I think it's what separates art from content." And just like that, every influencer, every critic, every studio exec glued to their feed, leaned in. Ryan sat back, watching it unfold, but his face, there was something else now. Reflection. Denzel looked at him. "You said you grew up watching us. Idolizing us. But then you chose to mock what you didn't understand. Why?" Ryan's smile this time wasn't cocky. It was broken. "Because when I tried to be real, it didn't sell. When I tried to be you, I got silence. But when I joked about it, they clapped." "Ah," Denzel said, standing slowly. "So you built a brand to protect the wound." The audience murmured. Graham tried to cut in, but no one was listening anymore. Denzel stepped toward center stage. Not towering, just anchored. "Let me tell you something," he said, eyes sweeping the room. "Respecting the craft doesn't mean wearing a suit or quoting Shakespeare. It means carrying the weight of what we say. Every line, every look, people are watching. Kids are watching. You don't get to laugh your way out of that." Ryan looked down. "So what? I'm the problem?" Denzel paused. "No. You're the product of a problem. But you're not helpless." Silence. Then the audience clapped, not for performance, not for punchlines. For confrontation. For honesty. From the shadows of the audience, someone whispered just loud enough, "This should be required viewing." Twitter lost its mind. Hashtag the stage is sacred. Hashtag Denzel vs. Ryan. Hashtag no more acting. Graham finally spoke. "Gentlemen. I don't think this was ever just about jokes." Denzel nodded once. "No. It was about forgetting what the stage costs." And for a moment, even the cameras forgot to cut to commercial. The next morning, clips of the broadcast had gone viral. Denzel's voice, "You built a brand to protect the wound," was being quoted everywhere from Variety to Vox. A TikTok user remixed it into a spoken-word video. On Reddit, film students were dissecting every frame like scripture. But it was Ryan's face that told the deeper story. The way his shoulders slumped. The way his laughter faded, not out of defeat, but understanding. CNN ran a segment titled, "Hollywood's Mirror Moment." The New York Times front page, "Denzel versus the Era of Empty Irony." And under it all, a still image of Denzel, standing, not shouting, not boasting, but present, grounded. A man in full command of silence. Backstage, the energy had shifted. Ryan sat in his dressing room, scrolling through the storm. A knock. It was Graham. "Still breathing?" he asked, gently. Ryan chuckled. "Barely. That was real." Graham nodded. It was overdue. Meanwhile, Denzel had declined all post-show interviews. He left the building quietly, in the back seat of a black SUV. No entourage. Just a script in his lap and a notebook open beside him. Notes. Always notes. But the moment didn't fade. On The View, Whoopi Goldberg said, "Denzel reminded us what the stage is for. It's not always comfort, it's confrontation." Trevor Noah tweeted, "Art can't survive in sarcasm alone. What Denzel did last night. That was a masterclass in truth." And under all this, something even more unexpected happened. Ryan posted on Instagram a black and white image of him and Denzel standing side by side backstage. No smiles. Just truth between them. Caption: "Last night wasn't humiliation. It was education. Thank you, D." The comments exploded. Chris Evans, "Respect." Zendaya, "This is what we need." Ava DuVernay, "Let's talk about what accountability actually looks like." By noon, agents were calling studios, directors were rewriting scripts, and for the first time in years, late-night TV felt urgent again. In the quiet corners of the internet, a whisper turned into a roar. Acting just got real again. The aftermath didn't settle, it evolved. Film schools began circulating the clip in lectures titled, "When Performance Meets Purpose." Directors paused comedy rewrites to discuss tone. Podcasts debated whether Denzel had reignited the soul of serious acting. And in quiet corners of Los Angeles, something rare happened. Auditions slowed. Agents stopped pushing for likes and started asking, "Can they hold a moment like that?" Meanwhile, Denzel remained silent, no tweet, no press. But his silence roared. He didn't need to ride the wave. He was the wave. At USC, a group of acting students gathered under a banner, "Legacy isn't loud." A young woman read aloud the quote that had shaken her to the core. "You hide behind irony because you're afraid of what's real. But the audience isn't. They're starving for it." The phrase echoed through coffee shops, late-night writing rooms, and green rooms across the country. Ryan? He didn't vanish. Instead, he started listening. He canceled a comedic sketch he had planned for Fallon. He called his director for the next Marvel project and said, "No more autopilot. I'm not going to play safe anymore." And the industry noticed. Within a week, The Hollywood Reporter ran a feature. Ryan Reynolds, From Charm to Change. The cover photo wasn't him smiling. It was him thinking. In the center of it all was Denzel, unmoved and unwavering. He wasn't interested in trending. He was interested in transformation. And for once, the world leaned in. The cameras had long stopped rolling. But the scene was far from over. 1 month later, Denzel was invited to speak at an invite-only gathering of young actors at the Pasadena Playhouse. No press, no filters, no handlers. Just raw space and real voices. He stepped onto the stage wearing a simple gray shirt, no designer cufflinks, no teleprompter. The silence in the room wasn't out of fear, it was reverence. He didn't waste time with jokes or pleasantries. Instead, he looked directly at them and asked, "Why do you act?" A pause. The kind that's felt, not heard. Then he continued, voice steady. "If it's for applause, go join the circus. If it's for fame, open an app. But if it's for truth, if it's for the stories that burn inside you, then stay. Because the industry doesn't need another personality. It needs spine." Meanwhile, Ryan Reynolds watched from the back of the room. No cameras caught it, but his eyes stayed locked on Denzel the entire time. He wasn't the guy who played it cool anymore. He wasn't the meme. He was the student. Later that night, a new video surfaced. It wasn't produced. It wasn't rehearsed. Just someone's phone catching Denzel saying something to Ryan off stage. Being funny is easy. Being real? That's the work. It exploded online. Not because it was flashy, but because it was rare. And in a world drowning in noise, Denzel's clarity cut through like a blade. Talk shows started inviting fewer influencers and more thinkers. Scripts started leaning toward honesty over spectacle. And the phrase, "be real like Denzel," started trending, not as a joke, but as a challenge. Legacy wasn't a trophy anymore. It was a responsibility. And the man who walked off that late-night stage weeks earlier, had sparked a quiet revolution. He's a legend, but also a diva. That one-liner was meant to sting, to turn reverence into ridicule. But Denzel didn't flinch. He didn't chase applause. He stood still. He let the silence speak louder than the insult. What Ryan called diva energy was actually discipline. What he mocked was the weight of integrity. In an industry built on performance. Denzel reminded everyone what it means to be real. No punchline, no comeback. Just clarity. And when the cameras stopped rolling, the moment didn't fade. It echoed. Because greatness doesn't beg for respect. It commands it.